Now available in paperback and Kindle, All About Marilyn. Learn all about the struggles of a faded former teen sitcom star in this absolutely fabulous 5-star screenplay. Get All About Marilyn in paperback and Kindle on Amazon.com today.
Better get the cool slow, y'all, cause we're having us a barbecue.
Filmmakers Michael Bay and James Cameron are lamenting the sad state of affairs of Hollywood. Now, the two filmmakers in a recent article talked about a phone call that they had where they bemoaned the state of the business of Hollywood and how it's next to impossible to get any film greenlit anymore at any of the studios. Now, this is a very troubling sign because both Michael Bay and James Cameron are known for making box office blockbusters and known for bringing in big profits to Hollywood. And if they can't get a film greenlit just based on their word, then we are in a really bad place for entertainment in this country. Now, about 30 years ago, a guy like James Cameron could basically walk into a studio and just make a pitch, and many studio executives would go out of their way to go out here and just greenlight that film on their word alone. And unfortunately, what's happened over the last 30 years is that Hollywood has changed, and not really changed for the better, and not changed for the better due to several trends that have taken place in the industry. And one of the things that basically has derailed the entire creative process is the Telecom Act of 1996. Now, Hollywood basically lobbied for this Telecom Act because they said that they would not be able to compete because of federal regulations that made it where one individual could only own one TV station, one radio station, one newspaper or magazine in one area. And they wanted to lobby to deregulate the whole entertainment industry. Unfortunately, as they've deregulated the entertainment industry back in 1996, it has been doing damage to the overall creative process of the entertainment industry over the last almost 30 years. Now, ever since the Telecom Act was passed, instead of media going out here and being where it was competitive, what we saw were corporations go out here and buy a lot of the movie studios, a lot of the radio stations, to the point where by 2001, most of the media was basically controlled by only 6 major corporations. And as those 6 major corporations took over most of the media here in America and across the globe, what has happened, especially here in America, is that this has done overall damage to the whole business of Hollywood, and done damage to the business of Hollywood because when all of those companies basically got consolidated, what that did was it led to there being a elimination of competition. And with that elimination of competition, this is the thing that choked out creativity. And as we have this creativity basically being choked out because most studio executives no longer are people who are creative or imaginative. No, what's happening these days with today's Hollywood executives is that today's Hollywood executives are mostly bean counters who were in the accounting department in some cases, or in many cases these days, they're coming from Silicon Valley, and these computer nerds, they know a lot about facts and figures, but they really don't know anything about art, and that is what's really being reflected in the overall business of Hollywood these days and the products that are currently produced. And because the entire business is changed from the days when guys like Michael Bay and James Cameron could walk into a studio executive's office with their own reputations as related to being people who could produce consistent box office results, what's happened is from the days of 1998, when a guy like Michael Bay could walk into a studio executive's office after talking to him, he could ask him to say, hey, I got this idea for a movie like Armageddon, And the studio executive would just go with it because they would trust a guy like Michael Bay based on his word and based on his previous box office performance. Same thing with James Cameron, a man who has a record of going out here and producing hits like The Abyss, Terminator, Terminator 2, Judgment Day, and other films like Avatar, again, Avatar 2 being the highest grossing movie of all time. You would think that would have some influence on many of the studio executives. Unfortunately, today's studio executives are not the same type of guys that Michael Bay and James Cameron dealt with, who knew the business and knew that they could possibly trust to take a risk on a guy who has consistent box office performance. No, today's studio executives, most of them are either old boomers who basically are stuck in the past, or they are really young guys who have come from Silicon Valley. And as they've come from Silicon Valley, they don't really understand the business of film and how the business of film is risk. No, what we're seeing more is we're getting this whole bean counter approach to entertainment, and most of these films no longer are allowing, most of these studios aren't allowing filmmakers to go out here and make the films based on their vision. No, what they're doing is the same thing that's happening as related to the publishing industry, where you have content being created by committee, and with content being made by committee, what's happening is that this is really taking the spirit out of the films, taking the energy out of the filmmaking process, and taking the heart and soul out of everything, and making the entire creative process extremely stifling, to the point where we're not seeing a lot of projects being greenlit due to just not only the consolidation of media platforms, but a lot of content isn't being produced because the bean counters and the computer nerds fear risk, and because they fear risk, we're not really seeing a lot of great creative content being produced these days. No, when it comes down to these modern movie executives who produce films by committee, they play it safe, and they play it safe to the point where all we get is a very slow process to get anything done. And as a result of that process being slowed down, what we're doing is we're not getting content being produced quickly. And when we do get content produced, it often is very bland, very stale, and very homogenized. And it's so bland, stale, and homogenized that it fails to answer that critical question a screenwriter like myself has to answer when I put my fingers to the keyboard for a novel or a comic book or a screenplay, and that is, why should we care? And these days are having a hard time caring about going to the movies. They're having a hard time even thinking about going to pay for subscriptions for streaming, and that's all due to the modern process of Hollywood. The modern process of Hollywood, where you've got computer nerds and bean counters basically looking to count every penny before they allow anybody to take risk, and that really runs diametrically opposed to the entire business of Hollywood. Now, as someone who has studied the entertainment industry for over 25 years, I can tell you the way you get to success is not by playing it safe. No, Hollywood has always made its biggest successes by taking huge risks, and the huge risks always lead to great rewards, and the rewards are due to the risks that they take creatively behind the camera, because a studio executive usually had faith in a director or a screenwriter or a producer to come up with a concept. They usually went out here and went out on a leap of faith. They went out on a leap of faith to basically trust that person to make a great film. And then after they made that great film, the smart executives just got out of the way. And as they got out of the way, they let that producer make the content and make the content that they wanted, and make that content, and then really again let that content catch on. That's how we got classics like The Godfather. That's how we got classics like Star Wars, Rocky, and many other great films that came out throughout the 70s, 80s, and the 90s. And that's how films connected with people for over 40 years. But today's Hollywood, basically, since it's become corporatized, has lost its soul because everyone is so busy trying to count the dollars and trying to make profits that many studio executives no longer want to go out here and compete. No, they want to go out here and try to go out here and get guaranteed results. They want to go out here and try to create a winning formula that is related to getting a guaranteed result, that they don't understand that that's not how the entertainment business works. And the one thing that they're doing is sucking the art out of the entire genre of Hollywood, sucking the entire art out of everything. And that was really shown to me by the really bland selections for the Oscars. I mean, it used to be that films were very creative, but over the last 5 to 10 years, all we either get are, or what we're getting these days for the Oscars is mostly art house crap. And again, art house crap basically because it's bland, homogenized, uninspired movies that really don't talk about the commentary about a state of the world. Or we either get these big budget superhero movies. Again, this tunnel vision is sucking the life out of creativity. And when you have giants like James Cameron and Michael Bay lamenting the state of the industry is in a bad place, and it's been in a bad place due to the really bad legislation known as the Telecom Act of 1996. The Telecom Act of 1996 led to this consolidation of media, and this wound up stifling creativity in Hollywood, to the point where these nerds and bean counters are only focused on box office, and as they're focused on box office, they're not really understanding the overall business as related to making profit, because there's more to filmmaking than making empty art house movies or making big budget superhero movies. There was a whole series of genres of movies that Hollywood no longer makes. I mean, Hollywood no longer makes dramas. Hollywood no longer makes romantic comedies. Hollywood no longer makes teen movies. Hollywood no longer makes movies about people. And because they don't make movies about people, people have no incentive to go to the movies. And since they don't make movies about people and the human condition, the entire movie business has been suffering over the last couple of years. And this was even before the pandemic. It has been suffering due to a lack of creativity, a lack of imagination, a lack of passion, a lack of heart and soul. Because when I look at a lot of modern films, they have no heart, they have no spirit, they have no soul. And this is something one of my viewers, who was a young guy at 22 years old, he made a whole video about this, about how films since 2010 have become really just bland and just they don't have that spark, because he's been watching a lot of older movies on VHS, and you could feel that heart and soul in those movies. You could feel the passion of the creator, because the creator had the space to go out here and make their story and tell their story on screen, and they had that place and that space to tell the stories about the things that they loved. And that's what's really missing from today's modern Hollywood. Today's modern Hollywood is a place where everything is, again, so pasteurized and so homogenized that the content doesn't have any heart and soul. Same thing that goes on in today's modern book market, where a lot of the books and the media are produced by these companies because it's done by committee. They've basically overthought everything, and as they overthink everything and overanalyze everything, they suck all the heart and soul out of the story. And that's something that a creator puts in a story when they have their fingers to the keyboard. We transfer a part of ourselves into those stories, so that when you read that book, you are feeling that whole experience. You're connecting with things, and feel like it's authentic. That's what a creator does, but it's hard to get creative in corporate Hollywood because corporate Hollywood, again, puts profits over people, but that's not what filmmaking is all about. No, filmmaking is a creative process that's done by people to express themselves creatively, to make a comment about life and show you a snapshot of the world. That's what filmmaking is in and of itself. It's a creator, again, telling a story with moving pictures. And sadly, what's happened with that whole process is as corporate America has gotten involved, we have executives who are more focused on trying to maximize profits instead of trying to understand that the way you get profits is by making films people can relate to. Because if people can't relate to your film, they can't relate to your story, if they can't connect with your story, then they have no reason to care. And if they have no reason to care, they have no reason to spend money on your film. They have no reason to spend money on your film or whatever media you produce, because you need to have that heart and soul in your product. That heart and soul is the thing that makes people care. But the whole process, again, has been slowed down, like James Cameron and Michael Bay have talked about. They've talked about how this process has been slowed down. And again, slowed down because these bean counters and computer nerds from Silicon Valley basically, again, want to make everything cleaned up and safe so that they can get a guarantee. But the whole thing is, when it comes down to entertainment, nothing is guaranteed. The entire entertainment business is based on risk, and the great irony is that as they try to play it safe, most of the products they're making for the movies, and that's what they call them, products, are bombing at the box office. Many of these movies that they thought were going to be guaranteed hits are turning into flops, and they're flopping because there's no personal connection with these stories. And even worse, many of these new Hollywood types don't know anything about marketing or advertising. So many of these people, they make very bland, uninspired movies. Then they don't really do any good marketing, because anybody who's in the entertainment business knows that marketing is about a good 60% of how you get the money for that movie. You have to build buzz, you have to build anticipation, you have to build excitement, and many of these guys who are, again, computer nerds and bean counters, they don't really understand people. They don't understand how to connect with people, and that's a big problem with their whole process, is that their process is facts and figures and not really people. And that's something a good executive in entertainment, you have to know people, you have to know psychology, and filmmakers, when they're writing stories, they have to know people to make characters that people can relate to. And the big problem with many of these nerds, and again, socially awkward types, is that they don't know people. And again, since they have bad interpersonal skills and bad social skills, that's what's being reflected in their material. That's what's being reflected in their material, because they don't know how to go out here and make material resonate with an audience. They don't know how to go out here and talk to people and just hear people out and see people. No, what they want to do is say, hey, this is Star Wars. It's a known concept, so we will make concepts on Star Wars. This is the MCU. We know that it's popular with people, so we will make concepts on the MCU. But that's not filmmaking at all. No, that's not filmmaking at all. That's just you looking to, again, maximize your profits. But you can't maximize profits in the entertainment business, because entertainment isn't something where you make money by playing it safe. No, you make it by taking a risk. And that's what's really being not here in the entertainment industry. And it's really destroying the overall entertainment business, where I'm seeing these big 6 studios imploding at to the point where we may only get 3, because we basically saw Fox basically gets taken over by Disney, and Warner Brothers is on the brink right now of being in a place where it may be on the road to bankruptcy. And it's in that place because they're not allowing the right material to be greenlit. They're not allowing material through. And Since they're not allowing creators to have their vision and have their imagination, this is destroying the entire entertainment business. And sadly, I see this with things, because with the whole Captain America Brave New World, it's troubling to me that in February you only had one movie for the entire month, when before that you had more than one movie. I mean, I remember when they would release 10 to 12 movies in a month. And usually, because these movies had small budgets, they could basically recoup their costs on those movies in some cases with advertising, and they could also recoup their costs as related to releasing things like home video. But these studio executives, in their greed, speculated on streaming and thought streaming was going to take over, and basically got rid of physical media, not understanding that physical media was a revenue stream. Physical media like DVDs and Blu-rays and even VHS tapes, these were revenue streams for the studio to recoup losses. And this is one of the reasons why the studios are struggling, because you have people in the business who don't understand the business as related to revenue and don't understand the business as related to creativity. And as someone who, again, has studied the entertainment industry, I can tell you why the industry is in that bad place. Because, again, a nerd or a bean counter, yeah, they know facts and figures, but they don't know people. And because they don't know people, they don't understand that the film business is about people, because it's all about who you know, not what you know in this business. And it's about who can go out here and understand people. That's what's doing damage to the overall entertainment business. And the state of the industry is not just slow like James Cameron and Michael Bay say, it's on a slow state of demise. Because these studio executives are more caught up in their tunnel vision about making superhero movies, adding more CGI and AI into these films, and taking people out of the process. And you can't have an entertainment business that's showing stories about people without people. That's the thing that flies over the heads of most of these Hollywood executives. You can't have a business that tells stories about people without people. And your efforts to replace people with AI, with CGI, this is the thing that's killing your business. And you're killing your business because you're taking people out of the process. This is what you're doing when you go out here and focus heavily on computers and focus heavily on streaming. This is what's killed the business as related to things, because studios make most of their money on box office, may make their money from people going to the theater. And sadly, after the pandemic, we've become less about people and have de-incentivized people going out and experiencing the world. And that's what films did. They brought people to the world. They allowed us to experience the world through the lens of a creator. And sadly, we're not able to see that anymore, because you've got bean counters, you've got accountants, you've got all these computer nerds running these studios, running them straight into the ground, because they think, oh, people will buy subscriptions for streaming. But a subscription for streaming is not a way that the studios make their profits. No, they make their profits by getting people to go to the theater, getting people to get excited about movies, to go to the theater, and then as they get excited about that movie, getting more excited to buy that movie on home video, your profits come from people going outside. They don't come from people staying in their homes to watch streaming shows or movies or waiting for movies on streaming. No, as I stated before in a previous video, if Hollywood wants to survive, they're going to have to sacrifice streaming in order to be able to get the movie tickets, and sacrifice streaming because streaming is choking the life out of their business, along with these bean counters and computer nerds. These computer nerds and bean counters, again, yeah, they know computers, they know technology, but sadly, they don't know people, and that's why the entire business of Hollywood is in the sad state of affairs it's currently in. Now, if you want to check out my first screenplay that I ever wrote all about Maryland, you can find that screenplay on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. And you can also check out my TV series that I wrote an entire series for All About Nikki's fabulous first season, which is based on All About Marilyn. You can find that screenplay book on Amazon.com. You can also find it at other online booksellers like Draft the Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And if you want to check out any of the books that I create as related to the SJS Direct universe, which is an action-packed fantasy universe of characters in the supernatural, you can check out the books of the ISIS series, the Steam series, the John Haynes series, my Black Goth Spinsterella trilogy, and my Black sorority novel, The Thetas, my Black vampire novel, Eternal Night, and my Black business novel, Recipe for Success. You can find all those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them at other online booksellers like Draft the Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And if you want to see me make more videos taking the Hollywood and the entertainment industry to the barbecue, you can drop a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the link in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, All About Nikki, a fabulous first season. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air meets Clueless in this absolutely fabulous African-American 1990s teen sitcom. Get all 13 episodes of All About Nikki, the fabulous first season, in paperback and e-readers today. Now available in paperback and Kindle, Vampires Stalk the Darkness of the Eternal Night. Get your copy of Eternal Night in paperback and Kindle on Amazon.com. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.